Can you hear me? Oh, well, very well. So good morning, and thanks a lot for inviting us. So really thanks for this presentation, thanks for the organizer, and I would like also to thank you, Christina and Thorsten, that insisted to have this presentation, because today is really amazing seeing so many people interested in a topic like this. It was very, very technical and delegated to the regulation part. So it's really amazing to see this room full of people. So today I will just try to give you. So I will try to leave more. We will try to leave more space to the question. I will give you just an overview. What is the RF? What it's meant to be, and what is behind the whole process. And just starting to a very quick recap, but it was very well explained before. I believe you all know what eIDAS is, but I try to explain the acronyms because in the name, in my opinion, there is the whole vision of the project, because it's providing three main pillars that are identification, authentication, and signature. Okay, so these are the three main pillars. This is the goal of the entire project, as there was envisioned also in the first release. But these were new, obviously new feature and new nuance that's going to change completely the way that we're using today the identity and the signature. So it was done in 2014. It was quite visionary at that time. It's past almost 10 years now. So the Parliament started to revising that in 2020, and we are very close to finish the process of the legislation. So most probably the ambition is to finish this year or the beginning of the next year. Yeah, the goal is to harmonize. So there were a few, obviously, limitations on the previous one, and that was already mentioned before. But the main one is that we have a so harmonized identity schema today. They are working well in some countries, some other less. It depends from the schema, but they are maybe similar, but they're not the same. We created a kind of silos per nation, per member state, and so the idea is to overcome all the critical issue they have, the regulation has. So what will allow the user to do the new thing? So it's aimed out to identify, allow users to identify themselves using digital public and private services, like opening a bank account. It's meant to support, allow users to prove their age when logging into social networks or any services without sharing any other information, just proving that they are over 18, or obtain medical prescription, store and present digital documents, like a mobile driver license, in different use cases, in different scenarios, and also membership cards. So also information that are not necessarily proper document issued by the government. It's going to let people to sign contract with a binding value, legal binding value, and also authorize payment, for example, authorization. So at a glance, the UD wallet, it looks like this, more or less. There's kind of trying to summarize what it is. So we have a bunch of actors that we will see later, maybe better in more detail. And we have a PID provider. There is authority. It will be the member state. There will be QAA and EAA. QAA and EAA is a very bad way to describe attestation attributes. So one is EAA, it's meant to be electronic attestation of attribute, and QAA stands for qualified electronic attestation of attribute. At the end are always attribute with different value of the meaning that how they are trusted. Who is going to release. And the third one is the QAS provider, so because we need also to provide the function to sign. On the other side, we will have, so this is providing services to the wallet. That the wallet is there, you will see later all the protocols that we're envisioning to use at this moment, and might change in the future. And the relying party is who is providing the service. And around that, there is one very important thing, that is how we trust each other, all these components, how these people trust all of them. And this is, there are question marks, because it's, many of you have noticed that in the current release of the RF is missing this part on purpose, because it was quite complex to define in general terms, and we are working on clarify this part. And I will just switch to Thorsten to continue on this stream and timeline.
Can you hear me? Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, check, check. All right, thank you very much. So, good morning from my side. I'm here along with my notebook. But I'm assuming that's not going to be the trust anchor for eIDAS 2, just as an interim solution. And you know how stable interim solution will be, right? All right, so Andrew really made a great task in pointing out all the challenges that we are facing as a European Union with that really ambitious project, right? And I wanna shed some light on the different streams that are going on, because that's what this thing makes a very complex program. As Andrew told you, and that's on the top of the slide, there is a legislative process going on. It's still going on. So there was a first proposal by the Commission for the new regulation, and then the Parliament and the Council, so the Council is the representatives of the governments of the member states, came up with their own ideas. And now they are sitting together regularly and talk about how the thing will look like in the end. That's still ongoing. It's called trilogue, right? And in the end, the legislation will be adopted, and in some near or distant future, all the citizens of the European Union will get such a wallet, or a couple of them. And in parallel, we've got the expert group, and the expert group is defining the so-called architecture and reference framework. And that's the core of what we're going to talk about today, because that's defining the technical underpinning, the architecture, and the patterns that shall be used going forward in eIDAS. And yes, both things happened in parallel. I personally think that's a positive thing, because in the future, in the past, we had the legislation, and you all know that from IT projects, right? Someone writes the requirements, done. And then just we implement it, right? No questions back, no cycle. That's how we did it in the 80s, right? Now we do it differently. There is a feedback loop, and we modify things, and we do it in an iterative way. So, and I personally like the approach, because we not only have the ARF, we also will have a reference wallet application that's being built right now based on the definition in the ARF, and there will be 4 so-called large-scale pilots putting that to a test, meaning the legislation, the technical underpinnings in different use cases, being that identification, mobile driver's license, e-health, payments, and so on, in cross-border scenarios, right? And who in the room here is involved with a large-scale pilot?
Oh, wow.
Okay, that's a lot. You're not sure, or? Believe me, they will come after you. And the different large-scale pilots focus on different things. So different member states involved and different focuses. So DC4EU, for example, focuses on education and social security. Nobit, is someone here representing Nobit? You do a lot of payment, right? Yes. Anything else? No, payment use case. Okay, thank you. Potential is a consortium that focuses on the identification, mobile driver's license, e-health, signing, so the core use cases, could put it that way. And EWC, who's a representative of EWC here in the room? So what's the use case?
There's travel, payments, and organizational identity.
Excellent.
Can you repeat it so the online users can hear it?
Oh, the use cases, you mean?
No, if someone is...
I've got a mic. The EWC use cases are travel and payments for travel and organizational digital identity.
And I said, excellent. And I think this whole concept makes a lot of sense. And if you compare that to other initiatives, like, for example, the Payment Service Directive 2, that was done a couple of years ago, it was just a waterfall, right? Legislation, a couple of technical standards, and from an interoperability standpoint, right now, it's a real mess. Yeah? I hope that will have a better conclusion in the end. Paolo, may I ask you a question? Can you shed some light on how the legislative process and the work on the ARF is being synchronized?
Yeah.
So the idea behind the ERF is that will be also it's supporting the legal process, but the legal process will not end only with the regulation. There will be other acts, the implementing acts, defining specifically the standards. So that's the reason why the expert group in the eIDAS working group is working on the ERF, because that will be the basis for the implementing act, describing all the protocols, all the standards. So it's a preparatory work for that. But may I stress one thing? So I believe this, what just Thorsten said, is very important, because in this strategy that the Commission has decided to apply, running all these things together, there is one message, that it's how much it's important for the Commission, this project, more than others. So the legislation is running, so the effort doing this in parallel is, believe me, it's huge. It's huge, and coordination stuff. So this is, I believe, sorry, I not need to advocate for the Commission, but this is how this is important for all Europe.
Yeah. Do you want to take the mic?
Wanted to confirm that, yeah, it's true. We haven't seen that approach for the previous eIDAS regulation, and it's very welcome.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, as also Andrew illustrated, right? It's a really broad scope, because we need a very good functioning digital infrastructure, digital identity infrastructure for the society going forward to work. All right, so let's dig in a bit into the details of the ERF. I'm going to mostly skip that slide. I think you all already have understood that the ERF will refer to technical specifications, will provide guidelines and best practices. And it's got right now 5 use cases that Paolo already mentioned. We've got the different roles in the ecosystem. There are technical specifications being referenced, 4 different authentication flows, offline, online, supervised, not supervised, and 2 different credential types, the type 1, the famous type 1 and type 2 credentials. And as I learned in a conversation with Paolo in the morning, 2 o'clock, something like that, he arrived from the airport, the ERF is moving towards kind of a different terminology, right? In the beginning, type 1 was the high security thing, and type 2 was the, well, you can do some experimentation thing, which was not that clearly specified. We will see later on a later slide what's the current status is. So we now are more talking about the PID and the EAA instead of type 1, type 2 credentials. I think that's more tangible for all of us. That was one of the outcomes, first outcomes of working in the expert group. And I'm saying we because Christina and myself, we are, based on a liaison between OpenID Foundation and EC, are now allowed to contribute to that effort as well. Thanks for that. All right, so this is kind of the architecture of the thing. So in the center, you see the European Digital Identity Wallet. And then you've got a couple of providers that provide the different services. Let me start from the top. So we've got the PID provider that's creating, issuing the personal identity data for the citizen or the resident. And the assumption typically is that it is either provided by the member state or the member state tasks someone to do that. Then we've got QEAA providers, Qualified Electronic Attribute Attestation providers. And they're going to issue a variety of credentials. I mean, in the end, it's all kinds of verified credentials going forward, right? University diploma, mobile driver's licenses, tickets. No, QEA is not a ticket. That would be a non-qualified thing. So qualified things, I assume, are more tied to the identity. And the EAA are those providers that issue any kind of credential. They are not as regulated as the QAAR, but from a technical standpoint, it's more or less an issuer of any kind of verified credentials. And if I come back to what Andrew raised, the trust thing, I think is even more complex than you said, because right now we already have a trust list in every member state, and we already have that trust list of the trust lists, which is hosted by the European Commission, and it's focusing on identity. But if you're now going full scale, issuing university diploma, prescriptions, and I don't know what, those are all different domains, and each of those domains has its own governance rules. So we'll see trust lists for all of those domains, right? So it's even a new dimension that I would like to add to that picture. But I also assume we can come up with technical solutions that at least allow us to use the same technology for managing those different trusts. And then we've got the providers that do the qualified electronic signatures. They already exist in eIDAS 1, right? And I would say that's the most successful part of eIDAS 1. You agree? Okay, good. So then on the right-hand side, we've got the relying party and the EU Digital Identity Wallet Provider. So the EU Digital Identity Wallet Provider will be an entity, that's a new entity, and it will be regulated and needs to be certified in the same way as QTSPs are today. And on the left-hand side, you see the different bodies that are, that have a task or role in that whole process. So for example, a conformance assessment body will, for example, assess the conformity of a EU digital identity wallet provider to the legislation. And then in the end, we've got those trusted list provider. And yes, you see in the center, there's a user. And I hope, and I agree with Andrew, the user experience is going to be very, very important. Yeah. But I'm as architect, I want to focus on those canonical computer science rectangles for the moment. All right, so let's talk about technology. Is there a question?
If you can get back to the previous picture. So, as presented before, the trust list is not unimportant, but I see a dotted line to the trust list. So I wonder, and maybe Paulo, again, you're close to the center, Luxembourg, where things happen. How does that link to, for example, and I'm not saying that I'm an advocate of it, but for example, to EBSI or the vector large-scale pilot? Any links there, or it's completely decoupled?
But sorry, between who?
So the Commission is not only giving subsidies to the 4 large-scale pilots mentioned, but also giving subsidies to things which come out of the EBSI project, like the vector large-scale pilot, which is hitting that layer. So I wonder how you see the relationship between the LSPs for the EUDI wallet and the fact that the trust list is like our trust anchor.
Yeah, I mean, that's a quick answer. That's just a possible implementation of the trust registry or trust list. So it's one of the options, and it's part of that picture too.
Question over here as well.
But the dotted line, all of them are dotted line, just because at the beginning we didn't focus on that part. So you see there is no scope for now in the RF. The RF was meant to be a document, a living document, and this will be updated. But obviously, and if you look closely, you will see that one dotted line is missing, because it's missing the dotted line from the EUD wallet to the trusted list. But this is, there are a few mistakes. As I say, this is a development process, and also for this technical specification, and it will be improved. But just to answer to your question, yes, the EBSI is there, because that's one of the possible implementation of how you manage that part.
So can we let the speaker carry on, so that we can keep
bad luck, Dan.
Thank you.
Sure. We'll come back to you, Dan.
Thank you. Here, let's quickly talk about the actual technologies underlying the ARF. So 2 big columns, protocols and formats. And I think bottom line, what needs to be understood is for neither of these, you can just take and run with it. As have been talked from Andrew to Paul and Torsten, you need to, on top of that, select trust frameworks, you need to select crypto suites, you need to select identifiers. So in the end, you would need this kind of interoperability profile that you would implement according to your use case needs and whatnot. And I think 2 requirements that drove these choices. One is a need to meet different use cases, right? Like we've been hearing, there are 4 big large-scale pilots right now, which each of them focus on different scenario. And maybe in an ideal world, we could see one thing meeting all the requirements. But right now, the hypothesis is that maybe that's not true. And another thing is, let's try meet the use cases when there is an internet connection, when there is no internet connection, right? So keeping that in mind, for protocols, for both issuance and presentations when you do have internet connection, OpenID for verifiable credentials. So there is OpenID for verifiable credential issuance and OpenID for verifiable presentations. And the protocol, it builds up on OAuth and vast experience that that community has been building up throughout 10 plus years. And the benefit it would give is security, and also research that has gone into it, but also hopefully helping you to cross the chasm, right? The systems we have at large scale in production do utilize those OAuth and OpenID Connect protocols, right? That's the libraries you guys have. That's the knowledge and expertise that your developers have. So minimizing that gap to bridge that and make the transition towards this decentralized identity world smoother, but also helping to, benefit, takes the best of the both worlds, right? And also for proximity, when you do not have internet connection, so when you want to present your credential using NFC or Bluetooth low energy connection, that's ISO 18013-5. And for formats, so that's the protocol is how you issue and send, right? How you communicate between the three components. And formats is how do you express the data that you actually want to, tell about the user. And one, again, another requirement was selective disclosure data. I prefer the word data minimization, but essentially minimizing the data that gets to the verifier in the end. So that was important components. I think that was that drove some of the decisions. Selective disclosure, JOTS is a work happening in IETF. So if you think JOTS cannot be selectively disclosed, we're trying to break that. now you can. There's this new work happening. And for proximity, so you can present both of them, both selective disclosure JOT and ISO MDoc using OpenID for verifiable credentials. Unfortunately, right now, if you want to present using NFC and Bluetooth, only ISO MDoc fits that purpose. And so that's kind of the thing. And yeah, do you want to add something?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons, or one of the consequences of the fact that Christina just outlined that in proximity right now, the protocol that has been chosen is supporting the MDoc credential format only. There is a requirement in the ARF that a PIT issuer, for example, need to issue the credentials in both formats, so that the user can then flexibly use that through different protocols. I guess the hope is that there is some conversions around protocols and so on, so that in the online and in the proximity scenarios there is flexibility, what kind of credentials and what credential formats can be used. Do you want to add to that, or?
Yeah, well, thank you. You very well explained. So the idea at this stage is to provide more flexibility possible, and that's the idea why we decide to request both issuance in two formats. And there are different needs, and these formats are supporting. So that's the reason why.
Yeah, it doesn't come for free. It increases the complexity significantly, and also has consequences on the way trust is managed, for example. We just came across that in one of the last meetings. So because MDoc only supports X509 for that, and even though SDJOT is more flexible, we somehow are tied into that. But that's the consequence, right? And we need to get going and then see how we're going to sort it out. I think we are through now. We can take questions. No, oh, sorry, status. Paolo.
Yeah, no, just that I will be very, very fast. So what we are working on, so the rest you already know. So the main topic right now where the expert group is working is the trust model. So try to define how the trust will work in details for each attestation, but also in general, so in more general sense. You will see updates coming in the next week into the ref. That's the good things. Like it's coming in update more or less each month. The revocation, that's somehow part of the trust model, and privacy and security consideration, legal person identities, it's also quite important, and other requirements. It's still huge work to do, but yeah, the more important pieces are coming next month.
Cool. Are you ready to take questions?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
There's a lot.
Well, Dan was we blanked you earlier, so go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is very helpful. So my question, coming from a biometrics background, is on LOA high, which you need 2 of 3 factors. One can be inherence or biometrics, which according to legislation is comparing a physical characteristic against an authoritative source. So in your diagram of PID, to the wallet, will the PID include biometrics that will be, okay. Yeah. So what is going to be the authoritative source for biometric, and where does that comparison happen? Is it on device or in the member state?
On device for now. This has been not properly discussed, but for now there is no intention to put any biometrics due to privacy consideration. But I cannot say the last word because there is ongoing discussion on this point. But right now there is no information on biometrics in the PID.
Okay, so you have a choice of 2 of 3 2 or 3 factors, but the third factor, being inherence or biometrics, is not on the table. So you really have a choice of 2 of 2.
What about picture? There's no picture.
That is a biometric.
Yeah. Slow down. Let's keep it. It's no, Dan.
I have a simpler question for all of you. So, trust model and revocations, right? So these things have come up a lot during the talk, and I feel like there's an answer which is that'll come. We don't know yet. To me, these things are very much on the critical path of actually being able to do this at scale. And I just wondered, Torsten, I'll look at you for words of comfort, right? About what does the path look like to actually have those important but very difficult pieces actually ironed out?
I give it a first shot. I think that's the typical situation where we can all agree we need that. It would be cool to have one mechanism. We can agree on that. And then the next question is, what's going to be the mechanism? And that's where the discussion starts. And I think that describes the situation right now very precisely. The trust management mechanism at scale is a general challenge, an unsolved challenge in the SSI/decentralized identity space. Has been for years. No one has really solved that problem. But there are some pretty pragmatic solutions to that. I mean, the European Union already uses ETSI trusted list, right? I mean, and if we do not find anything better, let's go on with it, right? I mean, it doesn't scale, and I would say to really larger numbers of entries, but it's there and it can be used along with long-term validation, which has value, right? And there are other concepts like EPSI has trusted registries and so on. There are a lot of different mechanisms. In the end, they all use similar mechanisms. It's in the end a decision that needs to be made. And with that, I would...
Just to take advantage that there are a lot of large-scale pilot implementers in the room, we need your help here.
Yeah,
we have hypotheses, what should work, what could work, but don't... It's a hard balance, right? You don't want to get it wrong and expose privacy on the internet, but at the same time, we have to try it out. We have to, see and prove what works. So, because if we don't, if we keep, arguing among ourselves, there'll be, a couple of huge giants that will just impose their own trust framework on all of us, right? So, let's work together on this and figure it out.
Okay, well, thank you very much.